That commission, if real briefly, was 14 people. 7 Republicans, 7 Democrats. And we worked well together. We worked well together for this county. And we set out to change some things. Ken asked me today to come explain to you briefly how we changed it and how it makes a difference to this group. And I'll tell you what, I was shocked when 67% of the people of this county voted in charter. That tells me this county was ready for a change. This county, thank you, this county was in a position where we had to make a decision. We had to continue in a place where Jefferson City had to approve what we were going to do, or we had to grow up and say, we're going to separate our executive and legislative body, and we're going to take control of our own government. We voted that in, and now, folks, it's time in November to pay attention to those council seats, because that is so very important. We're going to have a county executive for the first time, and that has to be somebody who's willing to work with anybody who's there. That has to be somebody that can bring everybody to the table and that's willing to do things for this county and not for themselves. There's no secret about it. In the Democratic primary, Randy Holman needs to win that. And then we need to have 2 good candidates in the general election, Kenny Waller and Randy Holman against each other, and either of those gentlemen are going to do a great job. Like I said, you know, in elementary school, we learned that the legislative, executive branches were separate. When we had a county commission, they weren't separate. They did everything together. The charter changes that. We now have 7 council members that you're going to elect. Each of you now has a representative that represents about 20,000 people instead of half of the county. You need to know those candidates. You need to get out and meet them. There is a general election in almost every one of those seats. There's primaries in many of them. So get out, get to know those people. Understand what their job is going to be, because their job is going to be your legislative body. They don't get dictated to by Jefferson City anymore. They can pass what's important for us. But that's a lot of power. So we built some protections into the charter. State law says you can't raise taxes without a vote. Well, we put it in our charter because we don't want the people of Jefferson County to face a tax increase without a vote, no matter what happens to state law. We didn't want the people in Jefferson County to risk losing their land to eminent domain without some extra protections. We put those in the charter. The county executive has veto power over that executive body. So we wanted to make sure that we built this thing right. If the county executive vetoes an ordinance, the county council has an opportunity to override that veto with with 2/3 vote. We need to understand how that government's going to work. If we don't understand it, then we don't know what these people are going to do when we put them in place. We wanted to make sure that the people, that a crowd like this could actually participate in our government. The county council now has to have their meetings after 6 o'clock at night. They have to post their notices 72 hours in advance. And those notices have to be on the internet so you can get to it. The other thing we did is, an ordinance still has to be read 3 times, but not at one meeting. It has to be over 2. So when a law is going to be passed to affect you, it's going to take place over at least 2 different meetings, so you have the time to hear about it and react, instead of going, oh, wait a second, what just happened? But we have to pay attention. We have to be involved to have that happen. We've put in place the framework for a county merit system. You know, I mentioned earlier people that have lost their jobs just because of friends or families of office holders. We wanted to put an end to that. We want to create a situation where if somebody's been in our county government for 10, 15, 18 years, whatever it is, and they know their job, we want to leave them there. We want efficiency in county government, not our friends to have a job. The merit system is so important, and this first council is going to put that merit system in place. And that affects every one of you because it affects your neighbors. It affects everyone who works for this county government. It is so important to pay attention to that. We're going to require that when they pass a budget, it has to be a balanced budget. If they get into the year and find that we're running a deficit, they have to make adjustments. This county cannot run on borrowed money. We put in place a public service commission. That public service commission is a vehicle for all of our fire districts and ambulance districts to communicate. We thought it was important that emergency services in this county have one table to sit down at instead of 12 or 13. For the people, we put in place the ability to recall county office holders. We put in place the ability to pass a referendum to pass ordinances that you think is important. If your legislative body's not doing it, or they pass an ordinance that you don't believe in, now you got to go out, you got to get 4% of the people that voted in the last gubernatorial election, and it goes on the ballot, and the people can repeal those ordinances if you don't like what your county government's doing. One of the arguments that we heard was that we were going to leave the elected officials in, and then as soon as the council went in, it would be amended, and we'd get rid of your elected county officials. We made sure that that's not that easy, because I think it's important for you to have a say in who your county office holders are, and not just the county executive. It's just as hard to change this charter as it was to put it in place. Your council or an initiative petition have to happen, and it's going to go to a vote of the people, and it has to be a 4/7 vote to change it. So don't let somebody tell you that as soon as the council gets in, it's going to change. But let me tell you the most important thing. The charter doesn't make a difference unless you participate. And you have to participate, not just go vote for my buddy Ed Martin and then not vote for anybody down ticket. You have to pay attention and vote in those down ticket races. And we can talk about this later if you want to see, but we've seen the numbers. We've seen that there have been people run in this county that the undervote, if added back to their vote, gives them identical numbers to Bond when he wins this county. We have to vote down ticket. We have to pay attention. We have to participate. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming out. And again, I'm gonna tell you that Ed's my man, and we're gonna hear from him in a couple minutes. Thanks.
How many people here live in Jefferson County? Is there any bigger good old boys network than what's going on down in Hillsborough right now? This will be a great thing for Jefferson County if we can get it, if we get the right people elected. I want to bring up